I've titled my talk this morning, Exploring a Path to Wholeness. And when I think of Emilie Cady, and she is the New Thought star teacher that I want to introduce you to today, or reintroduce you to, some of you may be familiar with Emilie Cady. She, in her writings and in her teachings, I think really does present for us teachings that help us lead to a path of wholeness. And wholeness meaning all aspects of our being. As I was reflecting on the title, I was remembering a thought I had when I was still in high school. And you know, when you're in high school, everybody around you, all the adults are asking you, what do you want to do with your life? What are you going to study? What do you want to be? And I remember exploring a couple of different options and thinking, ministry was not one of them. Ministry was definitely not one of them. But I remember thinking, I want to maybe be a doctor because I want to alleviate physical pain and suffering. I knew I wanted to do something that would be helpful. So I thought, maybe I want to be a doctor. And then I thought, well, maybe I want to be a psychologist because psychologists help people mentally and emotionally heal from wounds and be their better selves. Or maybe I want to be a social worker. Maybe I just want to get out there and make a difference with my hands. But I also remember, and this was at a very, very young age, saying, but each of those things serves a really important purpose, but they divide people up. Social work, in my mind at that time, was more circumstantial, situational, psychology more with the mind, medicine more with the body. Now, this is quite a number of years ago. There is now much more integration of spirituality in all of those fields, but not 50 or so years ago, not that long ago. And what I was looking for, what was important to me, is this very idea contained in the title of my talk, a path to wholeness, where we are spirit, soul, and body. We are a composite. All of that is important to our well-being. As we have looked this month at our New Thought teachers, we've looked at Thomas Troward and the Edinburgh Lectures. We looked at Florence Scovel Shinn and her ideas in the game of life and how to play it. Last week, we looked at Emmett Fox and talked a bit about some of his teachings and his very popular book at the time, Sermon on the Mount, and his connection with AA and all of that. And today it's Emilie Cady. And Emilie Cady was considered to be very much like Mary Baker, not Mary Baker Eddy, I'm sorry. Emilie Cady was very much considered to be a teacher's teacher. She influenced a lot of folks who then went on to start different branches of New Thought. Emilie Cady wrote a book called Lessons in Truth. How many of you have ever read this? Raise your hand if you have. Only a few of you, okay. It is, I haven't taught it for a while. Maybe I need to go back and teach it. It is considered to be Unity's textbook. Unity's textbook. Emilie Cady was born in 1848. She passed in 1941. And Lessons in Truth is a compilation of really some foundational principles that Unity is built on. What you may know about this book is that it was this book that Maya Angelou read. You all know Maya Angelou, right? Maya Angelou was so impacted by this book that it began her journey not only with Lessons in Truth, but began her journey into unity. And in her friendship with Oprah Winfrey, she spoke at length with Oprah about unity because of this book, because of these teachings. If you were to pick up a copy of this book and start to read it, you might find it to be quite dense and quite dated in its language and terminology because it was written quite a long time ago. But the principles are solid. The principles are solid. And I'd just like to share with you kind of 7 themes or messages that I find in Lessons in Truth and that I find in her work. I'm going to tell you what they are, and then I'll spend a little bit of time on each of them. First theme, your unity with divine presence. Your unity with divine presence. Second, the constructive power of thought. Third, the law of mind action. Fourth, affirmative prayer. Fifth, divine healing. 6th, living from the inside out. And 7th, the ongoingness of spiritual growth and transformation. Nod your head if some of that sounds familiar. It does, because that's where our roots are, in those writings, in those concepts, in those teachings. So exploring a path to wholeness, our unity with divine presence, our unity with divine presence. Every individual is inherently connected to this divine source, this divine energy. I don't know how it is that so much in religion, in Christian religion, focuses on the flaws of humanity and the sins of humanity and talks about us being born in original sin. When right there in Genesis 1:26, we're told we are created in the image and after the likeness of God, of God. In unity, we believe that we are born in original blessing. We understand our connection with this divine presence. We live, move, and have our being in this divine presence. It permeates everything in, through, and around us. We are not separate from it. We are one with it. We can be ignorant of that truth, and it's often out of our being ignorant of that truth, ignorant of who and what we are in essence, that we will do all sorts of crazy things and think all sorts of crazy things and act in all sorts of crazy and sometimes damaging ways. But when we understand that we are one with this divine presence, it shifts everything in our way of being, in our way of thinking, in what we say yes to in life, what we say no to in life. Emilie wrote, "Imagine, if you will, a great reservoir out of which lead innumerable small rivulets or channels. At its farther end, each channel opens out into a small fountain. This fountain is not only being continually filled and replenished from the reservoir, but is itself a radiating center whence it gives out in all directions that which it receives, so that all who come within its radius are refreshed and blessed. This is our relationship to God. Each of us is a radiating center. Each one, no matter how small or ignorant, is the little fountainhead at the far end of a channel, the other end of which leads out from all there is in God. The fountain represents the individuality as separate from the great reservoir of God, and yet as one with Him. And without Him, the older language, without Him we are nothing. This is our relation to God. Each one of us a radiating center. Every one of us, no matter how small or how ignorant. Each and every one of us, no exception, connected to this presence, connected to this field, connected to this energy. It's what I think is behind the song that Nicole sang, that Karen Drucker and Karen Taylor Good wrote. We are a gift. That's true of every one of us. And I don't know if when you were listening to the song, if you were imagining yourself singing that song to yourself. Some of you might have been, and some of you might have been very comfortable singing that to yourself and owning that for yourself. I am a gift. I am a gift. Others might have felt uncomfortable with that. And if we have discomfort with that, it's because we don't really understand what it means about that divine presence. It's the absolute equalizer, really, with all of us. It's no respecter of age or color or sexual orientation or anything like that. It is the essence of what we are. And it's that essence that really is what makes each and every one of us precious and a gift. Indulge me, if you will. Take your hand and just hold it up. Tap your heart and quietly say to yourself, I am a gift. I am a gift. I am a gift. What if every morning for the next 21 days, here's another 21-day invitation, if when you woke up in the morning, before you took your shower, before you had your cup of coffee, before you did your hair, your makeup, or shaved, you looked in the mirror and smiled at yourself and said, I am a gift. I am a gift. Be an interesting experience, an experiment to do, and just notice what comes up for you. If there's any yeah buts, or if there's a wholehearted, that's why I said before makeup, before shaving, before anything else, the raw you, right? I am a gift. It's not because of what we look like or what we own or what we know. It's because of what we are and whose we are. Exploring a path to wholeness. Second theme in hers is the constructive power of thought and word. That's so Metaphysics 101. The constructive power of thought and word. To realize that our thoughts are creative. And especially the ones that we consistently hold over and over and over. Our thoughts are energy, a form of energy, and energy radiates, energy attracts, energy repels, energy creates. And when we remember the first principle or the first idea of our connection with the divine presence, when we operate from that level of consciousness, working with the power of thought and working with our words, it's as if everything is amplified, as if our power becomes that much more constructive, that much more energetic. Charles Fillmore said, our bodies are the slowed down version of thought. I was thinking about this, that in a way we could say our life circumstances, maybe not entirely, but certainly largely, are the slowed down version of our predominant thoughts. The thoughts we think, the words we say, mold and shape. She wrote, our spoken word first hammers a thing desired into shape. Our continued spoken word brings this shaped substance forth and clothes it with a visible body. She goes on to say, the saying over and over of any affirmation is necessary for self-training of a mind that has lived so long in error. A mind that has lived so long in error. Have you ever lived with an erroneous thought in your head for a long time? Right. Not good enough, not smart enough, not capable enough, not born at the right time or in the right way, whatever it is. We probably all have some that are the same and some that might be very creatively different. But the saying over and over of any affirmation is necessary for self-training of a mind that has lived so long in error. That has lived so long in error. The older teachers of unity, and I think probably of science of mind as well, but definitely of unity, talked a lot about truth with a capital T and talked a lot about error. So true thinking or error thinking. True thinking or error thinking. Fourth theme of Emilie Cady's is the law of mind action. It is simply, and I know you know this, thoughts held in mind produce in the outer after their kind. Let's say it together. Thoughts held in mind produce in the outer after their kind. Thoughts held in mind produced in the outer after their kind. Every thought we are thinking is adding a layer of dimension to our life, is helping to build the framework of our life. And the repetition of those thoughts that we think are building that framework more solidly over time, more solidly over time. One of the greatest practices we can embark on is a practice of noticing what we notice. Noticing what we notice. If you take notes, you might want to just jot that down for yourself and just give a little bit of practice to the simple act of noticing what you notice. When you start your day, noticing what you notice. When you're driving, Notice what you notice when you're in conversation, when you're doing a task. Notice what you're noticing. Notice what's going on in your mind. Notice what's got your attention. What gets our attention? What gets us? What gets our attention gets us. Some people give a lot of attention to what's missing, broken, and not working in their lives, and guess what? That's where they live. That's where they're stuck. Unity doesn't say ignore what's broken or missing or not working. It says don't stay stuck noticing just that. Notice it so you can do something about it and move beyond that. Does that make sense? Thoughts held in mind produce in the outer after their kind. She wrote, desire is the thing you want in incipiency. Desire is God tapping at the door of your mind, trying to give you greater good. I've always loved that. I've always loved that. Desire of the Father, of God. Desire is the thing you want in incipiency, in potential. Desire is God, Spirit, the universe, substitute a word that you like, tapping at the door of your mind. Yoo-hoo. Yoo-hoo. Trying to give you greater good. And sometimes we're not paying attention. We're not paying attention. What if we reframed or looked differently about the desires that we have? What if we looked at them from the perspective, not so much of them being a thing, but of God's Spirit trying to get our attention, saying, this is greater good that I have for you. You're going to have to work for it, but this is your part to play in the universe. This is where I need you to show up. Yoo-hoo. Fourth idea, affirmative prayer. Affirmative prayer. Do you see where Unity's principles come from? You know, we have the principle that there is one God. God is absolute good. We have the principle that we are born in divine blessing, that we are inherently good. The Spirit of God is within us as our second principle. Our third principle is the power of thought and feeling to co-create our life experience. Our fourth principle, the principle of the power of prayer. The power of prayer, not the kind of prayer that we pray to a distant anthropomorphic God as like a vending machine, just hoping that if we say the right prayer in the right way enough times, that this God is just going to give us something right here. That affirmative prayer is meant to change our consciousness, to lift our awareness, to lift our consciousness to the level of God itself, of the powers and the potential, the presence of God itself. She wrote, we talk to God, that is prayer. God talks to us, that is inspiration. I love that line. We talk to God, that is prayer. God talks to us, that is inspiration. Have you ever had that feeling in prayer or meditation? That God or the One or Spirit is talking to you, not really the way I'm talking to you, but somehow connecting with you. Nod your head if you've had that experience. A lot of you are nodding, and I imagine at home as well. God talks to us. That is inspiration. That is inspiration. We go apart to get still, she writes. That new life, we go apart to get still. We pray. We go apart to get still. That new life, new inspiration, new power of thought, new supply from the fountainhead may flow in, and then we come forth to shed it on those around us, that they too may be lifted up. We go apart. Jesus talked about that, going apart a while to pray. There were any number of times recorded in the Gospels where we are told that he went apart. He separated from the crowds. He separated from the disciples to go apart to pray. I rather think if he needed that I probably need it big time. To go apart, what does that mean? It means to separate from the ordinariness, the distractions, the responsibilities of our life, and we have them, but to separate from them physically and mentally and emotionally, to plug into something greater, to plug into possibility, to plug into inspiration, to plug into that divine presence. She goes on to write, doing is secondary to being. Doing, as someone who loves task lists, my mind thinks in task lists. My mind thinks in plans and organizing. If you stuck me in a cave, I would organize the rocks. That's just who I am. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not, and sometimes it drives the people I live with maybe a little bit crazy. Doing is secondary to being. She doesn't say don't do. I'm glad she didn't say don't do. But that it's secondary to being. Doing is secondary to being. If you have no time for this quiet meditation, make time. Take time. Now, mind you, she wrote this before the internet, before texting, before cell phones, before a bazillion different channels on television, before going into a Walmart or a Target or whatever and looking for shampoo. You only had maybe 5 brands. Now you have 50,000 million brands of shampoo. And before being able to research everything to the nth degree, right? We spend time. Am I the only one that is aware of that or gets lost in some of those things? Okay. She says, watch carefully, make time, take time. And she didn't have all those other distractions that are part of our lives today unless we do something about minimizing some of it. Doing is secondary to being. If you have no time for this quiet meditation, make time, take time, watch carefully, and you will find that there are some things, even in the act of unselfish doing, which can be better left undone than that you neglect regular concentrated meditation. Every man must take time daily for quiet and meditation. In daily meditation lies the secret of power. Amen. Right? Doing is secondary to being. A 5th core message in Lessons in Truth and in Cady's writings and teachings is the idea of divine healing. Our New Thought movement really was birthed as a prayer and healing movement. That's really where its start was. Think of the Fillmores, both of them. Physical healing through prayer and through meditation. And so the teachers in those days had a really strong emphasis on divine healing. I neglected when I was mentioning a little bit about Emilie Cady. She was a doctor. She was a homeopath. And so when she treated patients, she treated them with homeopathy, and she treated them with spiritual practice, with affirmations, with denials, and so forth. And so like the vast majority of the teachers of her time, there was a real emphasis on the application of affirmation, of prayer in physical well-being. It was kind of like the spiritual vitamin that these teachers would emphasize. And she felt strongly that an important part of physical healing was a practice of gratitude. The practice of gratitude, a grateful heart, she felt was really connected with physical healing. She wrote, "There's something about the mental act of thanksgiving that seems to carry the human mind far beyond the region of doubt into the clear atmosphere of faith and trust where all things are possible, including healing." Where all things are possible, including healing. 6th, she talked about living from the inside out. Living from the inside out. Working on oneself. Cultivating certain qualities of being. You know, many of us in our careers, we have to learn things. We have to learn a trade or physical skills, ways of doing things. In our spiritual practice, a lot of it is about learning ways of being, cultivating inner qualities, qualities like peacefulness, qualities like joy, qualities like loving kindness. What I have experienced again and again in my own life when in when I set for myself a goal to practice greater loving kindness or to practice greater joy or to practice greater patience, what I get is not greater patience or greater joy or greater loving kindness. What I get are the places in my life where I can practice it. Have any of you had that experience? God, help me to be a more patient person. Why am I in the longest, shortest, slowest moving line in Costco? Because I asked to become a more patient person. How am I going to practice that if I don't have the places in my life in which to practice it? I always say, if you ever see me at Costco, do not get behind me. Unless you just want to have a nice long conversation, then by all means get behind me. But if you're in a hurry, don't get behind me. Anyway, power of my word. It keeps coming back to haunt me. But living from the inside out. She also, in her own way, talked about not sweating the small stuff in life. This is how she said it, and I really liked it. Men stumble over pebbles, never over mountains. Men stumble over pebbles, never over mountains. She also wrote, you must let go of the lesser in order that you may grasp the whole in which the lesser is included. You must let go of the lesser in order that you may grasp the whole in which the lesser is included. Living from the inside out. And the last theme that I want to share with you is her theme of the ongoingness of spiritual growth and transformation. The ongoingness of spiritual growth and transformation. It's basically the idea that there's always yet more for us to learn, to embody, to be, that no matter how much we have already learned, we have that as a foundation or a runway to continue to move forward, to continue to grow, to continue to evolve. She wrote, we have come to a place now where our search for truth must no longer be for the rewards. It must no longer be our seeking a creed to follow, but it must be our living a life. And what she's talking about there is what was true then in metaphysics, and I think it's also true to a certain extent even now in metaphysics, is that many people, myself included, come into this teaching because something in our life isn't working, and we're wanting to get something fixed, get a new job, get a new relationship, get greater abundance, whatever it may be. The pull into this teaching often is that something's not working. I want it fixed in my life. I've tried everything else. Let me try this spiritual thing. Maybe it will help. What she's pointing to here is we may come in that way, and there's nothing wrong coming in that way. But eventually we get to the place where it's no longer about that. It's about living a life. It's about being something very different from the inside out. We have come to a place now where our search for truth must no longer be for the rewards. It must no longer be our seeking a creed to follow, but it must be our living a life, our living a life. I want to point you to her book, Lessons in Truth. I checked. We do have a few copies upstairs in Partners if you're interested in them. She's got some great affirmations and denials in there that you might find of interest. I don't have the time to share them with you here now. But I want to close with this little idea as I was reading her words, that we have come to a place now where our search for truth must no longer be for the rewards. It must no longer be our seeking a creed to follow, but it must be our living a life. I'm thinking about a story that I remember of my grandmother, who was my introduction to unity. And I think one of the ways we know when we are really living these principles and these teachings, and that's our fifth principle in unity, is it's not enough to know these things, we have to live them. When we live them, people notice. There's something different about us. There's an energy that's different about us. There's a way of being that's different about us, and the difference is a positive one. And it was my grandmother who, without knowing that she knew these things or without knowing anything about unity, she lived her life this way. And a friend of hers noticed that, and a friend of hers said to her, "What are you doing? Who are you? How are you the way that you are?" And she said, "It's because of the things I believe. It's because of the things I practice." I don't think there's a higher compliment any one of us could be paid than someone noticing, "Hey, Mike, there's something different about you. Hey, McKenna, there's something different about you. Marcy, Daryl, George, there's something different about how you are. What is it that makes you be that kind of person?" That's when we know, gosh, we're really embodying some of this. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? And it's not that we put that there as a goal for ego gratification. It's not that at all. It's just that the very way we show up in life, particularly in the tough times, particularly in the challenges, that people take note and they go, there's something different about this person. I wonder what that is. It's our spiritual energy. It's our spiritual practice. Namaste.